The bridal boutique on Fifth Avenue smelled like champagne and fresh roses. Sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a golden glow over the rows of white gowns. I stood on the elevated platform, surrounded by mirrors, wearing the dress I'd dreamed about since I was a little girl. It was elegant, a fitted bodice with delicate lace sleeves, flowing into a soft A-line skirt. Nothing too extravagant, nothing too plain. Just me. "Oh, sweetheart, you look absolutely stunning," my mom whispered, her eyes already glistening with tears. My best friend, Rachel, nodded enthusiastically. "Emma, this is the dress. Jake is going to lose it when he sees you." I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. After 2 years of dating and 6 months of engagement, everything was finally falling into place. Jake and I had found our dream venue. The invitations were sent, and now, the dress was perfect. Then the door chimed. "Sorry I'm late." Patricia's voice cut through the moment like a knife through silk. My future mother-in-law swept into the boutique, designer sunglasses perched on her head, carrying a Louis Vuitton bag that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She was impeccably dressed, as always. Tailored blazer, pressed slacks, not a hair out of place. "Patricia, you made it," I said, trying to keep my voice warm despite the knot forming in my stomach. She barely glanced at me as she air-kissed my mother and took a seat on the velvet sofa. Traffic was absolutely dreadful. "Now, let me see this dress everyone's been raving about." I turned slowly on the platform, suddenly self-conscious under her scrutinizing gaze. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. "Well," I finally asked, my voice smaller than I intended. Patricia tilted her head, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Emma, darling, is this really what you're planning to wear?" My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" She stood up, circling the platform like a predator assessing its prey. "I mean, it's very simple. Almost plain, wouldn't you say? The Whitmore family has certain standards, and this dress," she paused, waving her hand dismissively. "It's an embarrassment, honestly." The word hung in the air like poison. My mother's face flushed red. "Excuse me? I'm just being honest," Patricia continued, her tone dripping with false sweetness. "Our guest list includes senators, CEOs, country club members. What will they think when they see the bride in something so budget?" Rachel stood up. "Mrs. Whitmore, that's completely inappropriate." "I'm trying to help," Patricia interrupted, turning to me with a patronizing smile. "Emma, dear, you come from a different background. You don't understand how these things work in our circles. Image matters. The Whitmore name matters." Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of her. "Jake loves this dress," I said quietly. "Jake doesn't know any better," she replied with a dismissive laugh. "He's blinded by infatuation. But I know what's best for this family. And this dress simply won't do." I sat in the passenger seat of Rachel's car, still wearing my jeans and sweater, the beautiful dress left behind at the boutique. My phone buzzed repeatedly, texts from my mom, from the bridal consultant, from Rachel asking if I was okay. I wasn't okay. She had no right to say those things, Rachel said for the 3rd time, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. "Who does she think she is?" "Jake's mother," I whispered. "The woman I'm going to have to deal with for the rest of my life." My phone rang. Jake's name flashed on the screen. "Hey, babe," his warm voice filled the car. "How'd the fitting go? Did everyone love the dress?" I closed my eyes, debating whether to tell him. Jake and his mother had always had a complicated relationship. He knew she could be difficult, but he also hated conflict. Every time I'd mentioned her passive-aggressive comments before, he'd make excuses. "That's just how she is," or "she means well, she just doesn't know how to express it." "It was fine," I lied. "Just fine? Come on, I bet you looked like a princess." A tear slipped down my cheek. "Your mom was there." The pause on the other end told me everything. "What did she say?" "Jake, can we talk about this later? I'm tired." "Emma." His voice was firmer now. "What did my mother say?" I took a shaky breath. "She called my dress an embarrassment. She said it wasn't good enough for the Whitmore family standards. That I don't understand how things work in your circles. The silence that followed was deafening. I'm coming over, he finally said. Jake, you don't have to. I'm coming over. We need to talk. Jake arrived at my apartment 40 minutes later, his tie loosened, his usually calm demeanor replaced with barely contained anger. He pulled me into a tight hug the moment I opened the door. I'm so sorry, he murmured into my hair. I'm so sorry. We sat on my worn couch, the one I'd bought secondhand when I first moved to the city, the one Patricia had once called quaint with a wrinkled nose. This has to stop, Jake said, running his hands through his dark hair. I've let her get away with too much for too long. She's your mother, I said softly. I don't want to come between you two. You're not coming between us.
She is.
He took my hands in his. Emma, I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you a long time ago. My heart skipped. What? He stood up, pacing my small living room. My mother. She's not who you think she is. The designer clothes, the country club, the Whitmore family standards, it's all a facade. I blinked. What are you talking about? My parents didn't come for money, Emma. My dad built his business from nothing. He grew up in a trailer park in Ohio. My mom worked as a waitress at a diner when they met. Everything she is now, everything she acts so superior about, she didn't earn it. She married into it. I sat back, stunned. But she acts like she was born with a silver spoon? I know. That's exactly the problem. Jake sat back down beside me. When my dad's business took off, my mom completely reinvented herself. New wardrobe, new accent, new friends. She became obsessed with status and appearances because she's terrified someone will see through the act and remember where she came from. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because I'm ashamed, he admitted. Not of where we came from. I'm proud of my dad's success. But I'm ashamed of how my mother treats people now. How she's forgotten what it was like to struggle. How she looks down on others to make herself feel legitimate. I processed this information, pieces clicking into place. The way Patricia always name-dropped. The way she overcompensated with designer labels. The way she seemed threatened by anyone who didn't fit her carefully constructed image. She sees you as a threat, Jake continued. You're genuine, kind, educated, beautiful, and you don't need to prove anything to anyone. That terrifies her because it highlights everything she's pretending to be. So, what do we do? I asked. Jake's jaw set with determination. We're having a family dinner this weekend, and I'm going to make sure my mother understands exactly who she's dealing with. The text from Patricia came 2 days later. Family dinner this Saturday, 7 p.m. Don't be late. Dress appropriately. Even her text messages felt like a judgment. Jake squeezed my hand as we stood outside his parents' house in the affluent suburb of Westchester. The colonial-style mansion was impressive, manicured lawns, a circular driveway, columns framing the entrance. Everything designed to impress. Ready? Jake asked. Not even a little bit, I admitted. His father, Richard, greeted us at the door. Unlike Patricia, Richard had always been kind to me, a quiet, hard-working man who seemed tired of the pretense his wife insisted upon. Emma, Jake, come in, he said warmly, pulling me into a brief hug. Good to see you both. The dining room was set with fine china and crystal glasses. Patricia emerged from the kitchen, wearing a cocktail dress for a casual family dinner, another performance. There you are, she said, her eyes immediately scanning my outfit. I'd chosen a simple but elegant navy dress, knowing anything I wore would be scrutinized. Well, that's nice. We sat down to dinner, roasted chicken, asparagus, potatoes. Everything perfectly prepared, probably by the housekeeper Patricia pretended she didn't need. So, Emma, Patricia began, cutting her chicken with surgical precision, have you reconsidered the dress situation? I know a wonderful designer who could create something more suitable. It would be my gift to you. The dress is perfect as it is, Jake said firmly. Patricia's smile tightened. Darling, I'm just trying to help. The wedding is a reflection of our entire family. Our family, Jake repeated slowly. That's interesting, Mom. Tell me, what exactly are our family values? Richard looked up from his plate, sensing the shift in tone. Excuse me? Patricia's fork paused midair. I'm curious, Jake continued, his voice calm but pointed. You talk a lot about Whitmore family standards and what's appropriate for our circles. I want to make sure Emma understands exactly what that means. Patricia's face paled slightly. Jake, this isn't the time. Actually, I think it's the perfect time. Jake turned to me. Emma, did you know my mother grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania? That she worked 3 jobs to put herself through community college. Jake, Patricia warned, her voice sharp. But he continued. Did you know she met my dad when she was waitressing at a truck stop diner? That she wore a second-hand dress to their wedding because that's all they could afford. The silence in the room was suffocating. Patricia's face had gone from pale to crimson. How dare you? How dare I what, Mom? Tell the truth. Jake's voice remained steady, but I could see the emotion behind his eyes. You've spent 20 years pretending to be someone you're not, and now you're trying to make Emma feel like she's not good enough? The irony is unbelievable. Richard set down his fork. Son. Dad, with all due respect, you've enabled this for too long. Jake turned back to his mother. Emma's dress is beautiful. It's elegant, it's her style, and it's exactly what she should wear. The fact that it doesn't cost $5,000 doesn't make it an embarrassment. You know what is embarrassing? The way you've treated the woman I love. Tears welled in Patricia's eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of anger and humiliation. You have no idea what I've been through, she said, her voice shaking. No idea what it's like to be looked down on, to be judged, to be treated like you're not good enough. Then why are you doing exactly that to Emma? Jake interrupted. You of all people should understand what it feels like. But instead of being compassionate, you've become the very thing you were afraid of. I reached for Jake's hand under the table, my heart pounding. I'd never seen him like this. So direct, so unwavering. Patricia stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. I will not sit here and be disrespected in my own home. Then maybe you should think about how you've been disrespecting Emma in every interaction you've had with her, Jake replied, standing as well. The comments about her apartment, her job, her family, her dress, it all stops now. Jake, please, I whispered, standing and touching his arm. Maybe we should go. Not yet. He looked at his mother, and for a moment, I saw genuine pain in his expression. Mom, I love you, but I love Emma more. And if you can't treat her with respect, if you can't accept her for who she is, then you're not going to be a part of our lives. Not the wedding, not the marriage, not any of it. Patricia's hand flew to her chest. You would choose her over your own mother? I'm choosing respect over toxicity, Jake said quietly. I'm choosing honesty over pretense. And yes, I'm choosing the woman who loves me for who I am, not for what I can project to her country club friends. Richard finally spoke, his voice heavy. Patricia, sit down. Richard. Sit down. There was a firmness in his tone I'd never heard before. Slowly, Patricia sank back into her chair. Richard looked at his son with something like pride. Jake's right. This has gone on long enough. Richard folded his hands on the table, his weathered face showing every one of his 60 years. Emma, I owe you an apology. I've watched my wife's behavior toward you, and I've said nothing. That was wrong. Richard, don't you dare. Patricia started. Patricia, for once in your life, just listen. His voice was gentle but firm. He turned to me. When I met Patricia, she was the most genuine person I'd ever known. She was working 2 jobs, taking night classes, helping her sick mother. She had nothing, but she had heart. That's what I fell in love with. Patricia's eyes glistened, her carefully applied makeup beginning to smudge. When my business started succeeding, I was thrilled to finally give her the life she deserved, Richard continued. But somewhere along the way, she stopped being grateful and started being someone else. Someone who needed to prove she belonged in rooms she was never excluded from in the first place. You don't understand, Patricia whispered. The women at the club, the business dinners, the charity galas, they all knew. They could tell I wasn't one of them. So what? Richard's voice rose slightly. I wasn't one of them either. I was a kid from Ohio who got lucky with a good idea and a lot of hard work. But I never pretended to be anything else. Because you're a man, Patricia shot back. Nobody questions a self-made man. But a woman? They pick you apart. Your clothes, your accent, your manners, where you went to school, who your parents were. I had to work twice as hard to be taken half as seriously. For the first time, I felt a flicker of sympathy for her. I understood that pressure, that constant feeling of being evaluated and found wanting. I get it, I said softly. Everyone turned to look at me. I do. I grew up in a small town in Michigan. My dad's a mechanic, my mom's a teacher. When I moved to New York, when I started working at the marketing firm, when I met Jake, I felt like an imposter every single day. Patricia's eyes met mine, and for a moment, the mask slipped. I still feel that way sometimes. I continued. Like I'm one wrong fork or one mispronounced word away from everyone realizing I don't belong. But Jake never made me feel that way. He loved me for exactly who I am. And I hoped that maybe you could too. A tear rolled down Patricia's cheek, cutting through her foundation. I'm not trying to take your son away, I said. I'm not trying to embarrass your family. I just want to marry the man I love and build a life together. And I want you to be part of that life. But not if it means constantly feeling like I'm not good enough. The silence that followed was different, softer, more fragile. I'm scared, Patricia finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm scared that if I let my guard down, if I stop performing, everyone will see the waitress from Pennsylvania and all of this. She gestured around the elegant dining room. Will disappear. Richard reached across the table and took her hand. Honey, the only thing that's going to disappear is our son if you don't change. Patricia stood abruptly and left the room. We sat in uncomfortable silence, the untouched food growing cold on our plates. When she returned 5 minutes later, her makeup was fixed, but her eyes were still red. She carried a small photo album. I want to show you something, she said, sitting back down and opening the album with trembling hands. She turned it toward me. The photograph showed a young woman, barely recognizable as Patricia, standing outside a small chapel. She wore a simple white dress with short sleeves and a modest neckline. No veil, no train, no elaborate details. Just a dress. Her hair was styled simply, and she held a small bouquet of daisies. Beside her stood a younger Richard in a suit that was slightly too big for him. That was our wedding day, Patricia said quietly. We got married at a courthouse and then took pictures at a church nearby. The dress cost $45 from a department store. The flowers were from a grocery store. Our reception was cake and coffee at Richard's parents' house. I looked at the photograph, then at Patricia. You look beautiful. I look poor, she said bitterly. That's all I could see when I looked at this picture for years. Not the happiness, not the love, just the evidence that I wasn't good enough. But you were happy, Jake said, studying the photo. Look at your face, Mom. You're glowing. Patricia touched the photograph gently. I was happy. Terrified about money, worried about the future, but happy. Richard was everything to me. She looked at her husband with an expression I'd never seen before. Vulnerable, genuine. He still is. Richard squeezed her hand. When did it change? I asked softly. Patricia closed the album. Gradually. The first time someone at a business dinner made a comment about my accent. The first time I was excluded from a conversation because I didn't go to the right college. The first time another wife looked at my dress, and I could see the judgment in her eyes. She paused. I decided I would never feel that way again. So, I became someone who couldn't be judged. Or so I thought. But you just shifted the judgment onto others, Jake said. Including Emma. Patricia nodded slowly. I know. And I'm sorry. She looked at me directly for the first time all evening. Emma, I'm truly sorry. You didn't deserve any of that. Your dress is beautiful. You are beautiful. And my son is lucky to have you. The words hung in the air, and I could tell they cost her something to say. Thank you, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I can't promise I'll change overnight, Patricia continued. This armor I've built, it's been my protection for so long. But I can promise I'll try. For Jake. For you. For this family. Richard smiled, the tension in his shoulders finally releasing. That's all we're asking. The following Tuesday, I received an unexpected text from Patricia. Would you be willing to meet me at the bridal boutique? I'd like to see the dress again. Just the two of us. I stared at my phone, unsure how to respond. Rachel, reading over my shoulder during our lunch break, was immediately suspicious. It's a trap, she declared, stabbing her salad. She's going to try to talk you into a different dress. Maybe, I admitted. But maybe she's really trying. Emma, you have the kindest heart, but this woman has been awful to you. I know, but I saw something at that dinner, something real. And if there's a chance we can fix this. I trailed off, thinking about the photograph of young Patricia in her $45 dress. That Saturday, I met Patricia at the boutique. She was already there when I arrived, sitting on the same velvet sofa, but this time she looked different. Less armor. She wore jeans, designer but still jeans, and a simple cashmere sweater. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and her makeup was minimal. Thank you for coming, she said, standing as I approached. Of course. The bridal consultant, recognizing us both, approached cautiously. Ladies, welcome back. How can I help you today? I'd like to see Emma try on her dress again, Patricia said. If that's all right with you, Emma. I nodded, and the consultant led me to the dressing room. As I slipped into the gown, my hands shook slightly. I wasn't sure what to expect when I walked back out. But when I stepped onto the platform, Patricia's reaction was completely different from before. She stood, her hand covering her mouth, and tears immediately filled her eyes. Oh, Emma, she whispered. You look absolutely stunning. I turned slowly, watching her reflection in the mirrors. I was so wrong, Patricia continued, approaching the platform. This dress is perfect. It's elegant, it's timeless, it's you. I was so caught up in what I thought a Whitmore wedding should look like that I couldn't see what was right in front of me. Thank you, I said softly. Patricia reached up and adjusted one of the lace sleeves gently. You know what this dress reminds me of? What? Grace Kelly. Classic, refined, beautiful without trying too hard. She smiled, and it reached her eyes. That's who you are, Emma. You don't need to try. You just are. The consultant beamed. I told her the same thing at the first fitting. Patricia stepped back, taking in the full view. I brought something. I wasn't sure if you'd want it, but... She reached into her purse and pulled out a small velvet box. This was my mother's. She wore it at her wedding, and I wore it at mine. She opened the box to reveal a delicate pearl bracelet. Simple, vintage, beautiful. It's not flashy, Patricia said. It's not expensive, but it's real, and it's been in our family for 3 generations. I would be honored if you'd wear it on your wedding day. My eyes filled with tears. Patricia, I don't know what to say. Say you'll let me be part of this, she said quietly. Say you'll let me be the mother-in-law you deserve, not the one I've been. I stepped down from the platform and, still in my wedding dress, hugged her. She stiffened for just a moment before hugging me back, and I felt her shoulders shake with quiet sobs. I'm so sorry, she whispered, for everything. I forgive you, I whispered back. 3 months later, the morning of my wedding dawned clear and bright. Sunlight streamed through the windows of the bridal suite at our venue, a historic estate in upstate New York with gardens and a view of the Hudson River. My mother was fastening the buttons on my dress, her hands gentle and sure. Rachel was adjusting my veil, making sure every detail was perfect. And Patricia was clasping her mother's pearl bracelet around my wrist. There, Patricia said softly, stepping back. Perfect. I looked at myself in the full-length mirror. The dress that had caused so much turmoil now felt like exactly what it was meant to be, a reflection of who I was, not who anyone else thought I should be. "You look like a dream," my mother said, tears already streaming down her face. "Mom, you're going to make me cry, and we haven't even started yet." I laughed, blinking rapidly. A knock at the door interrupted us. "5 minutes, ladies," the wedding coordinator called. My heart began to race. This was it. After everything, the conflict, the tears, the revelations, the healing, this was the moment. Patricia approached me one more time. "Emma, before you go out there, I want you to know something." I turned to face her. I spent so many years trying to be someone I wasn't, trying to fit into a mold I thought I needed to fill. But watching you these past few months, watching you stand firm in who you are, watching you handle everything with grace and kindness, you've taught me something important. "What's that?" I asked. "That the most elegant thing a person can be is authentic." She squeezed my hand. "Thank you for loving my son. Thank you for being patient with me. And thank you for showing me that it's never too late to become who you were meant to be." I hugged her tightly, careful not to crush my dress. "Thank you for trying. That's all any of us can do." The music began, the string quartet playing the processional. My father appeared at the door, looking handsome in his suit, his eyes already misty. "Ready, sweetheart?" he asked, offering his arm. "Ready," I said. The ceremony was perfect. Jake cried when he saw me walking down the aisle. I cried during our vows. Even Richard wiped away tears when Jake promised to love and honor me for the rest of his life. But it was the reception that held the biggest surprise. After dinner, after the first dance, after the cake cutting, Patricia stood and gently tapped her champagne glass. The room quieted, and all eyes turned to her. "I'd like to say a few words," she began, her voice steady but emotional. "For those of you who know me, you know I'm not usually at a loss for words." Polite laughter rippled through the crowd. But today, I find myself struggling to express what I'm feeling. When Jake first told me he was going to propose to Emma, I had concerns. She paused, and I felt Jake tense beside me. I worried she wasn't right for our family. I worried about appearances, about status, about all the things I'd convinced myself mattered. The room was silent now, everyone hanging on her words. "I was wrong," Patricia continued, her voice breaking slightly. "Emma is exactly right for our family. She's kind, intelligent, strong, and genuine. She loves my son with her whole heart. And she's taught me something I'd forgotten, that the most valuable things in life can't be bought, can't be faked, and can't be judged by anyone else's standards." She looked directly at me, tears streaming down her face. "Emma, when I first saw your wedding dress, I called it an embarrassment. But the only embarrassment was my behavior. Your dress is beautiful. You are beautiful. And I am so grateful that you're now my daughter." She raised her glass. "To Emma and Jake, may your marriage be filled with authenticity, love, and the courage to always be exactly who you are." To Emma and Jake, the room echoed. I stood and walked over to Patricia, pulling her into a hug as the guests applauded. "Thank you," I whispered. "No, thank you," she whispered back, "for giving me a second chance." As the DJ started the music again and guests moved to the dance floor, Jake pulled me close. "You did it," he murmured in my ear. "You broke through her walls." "We did it," I corrected. "You stood up for me when it mattered most." He kissed me softly. "Always will." Later that night, as the reception wound down and guests began to leave, I found Patricia sitting alone at a table, watching the remaining couples dance. I sat down beside her. "Tired?" I asked. "Reflective," she said with a small smile. "This was a beautiful wedding, Emma. Everything was perfect." "It was," I agreed. "Thank you for being here. For really being here." She turned to me, and in the soft glow of the string lights, I saw the woman from that old photograph, the genuine, vulnerable person beneath the armor. "You know what I realized today?" Patricia said. "I spent 20 years building a persona, trying to prove I belonged in a world that never actually excluded me. But in doing so, I excluded myself from the things that really mattered: genuine connections, honest relationships, real love." It's not too late, I said. You're here now. That's what counts. She squeezed my hand. You're going to be an amazing addition to this family. And I promise you, I'm going to be the mother-in-law you deserve. You already are, I said. As Jake and I drove away from the reception later that night, tin cans rattling behind our car and "Just Married" written on the back window, I looked at the pearl bracelet still on my wrist. It caught the moonlight, simple and beautiful. What are you thinking about? Jake asked, glancing over at me. About how sometimes the hardest battles lead to the most meaningful victories, I said. About how standing firm in who you are can change not just your life, but the lives of people around you. Deep thoughts for a wedding night, he teased. I laughed. Okay, I'm also thinking about how I can't wait to get out of this dress and into the hotel robe. Now that's the Emma I know, he grinned. As we drove into the night, toward our honeymoon and our future, I thought about everything that had led to this moment. The humiliation at the bridal boutique, the confrontation at dinner, the healing that followed, and finally, the celebration of love and acceptance. My dress had never been an embarrassment. It had been a catalyst, a beautiful, lace-covered catalyst that forced everyone to confront what really mattered. And in the end, what mattered was love. Not the performance of it, not the appearance of it, but the real, messy, complicated, beautiful truth of it. That was the real Whitmore family standard. And it was one I was proud to uphold. The end.